Hey, how are you doing? This is Georgia Truck Driver Nation. And what I want to go over is going to be the point behind what people have been asking me about us supplying them outsourced help from the Philippines. These are actual freight dispatchers that have got anywhere from 5 to 12 years experience. They know what they're doing. So that being said, you're getting people that are already skilled because the thing is, when you're actually got 10 in Truck Driver Nation, whether you're already an experienced freight dispatcher or you're somebody who's having to go through the course, then it puts you in two different circumstances. One where we have to work something out because you still do have to do a grow some because there is a learning curve. The second one is you already know everything, but you want the outsourced help because you really don't want to sit there and deal with the owner operators or watch the load boards. And I totally get it because it does actually get old at some point, and I get that. Um, but that's just the day-to-day routine because some people can actually do it and it doesn't even bother them. But that being said, we're going to take a look at this on the two options. The one that most people get with the actual lead that we sent out with them, show them what you can make. But what I'm fixing to show you here is actually what you can make if you end up teaming up with us and letting us give you the freight dispatchers, and we'll still help you find owner operators. But a majority of that's going to fall on your own shoulders because remember, we're going to be running everything under your business name. That's the only way that we can prove the legitimacy that your honor and your uh, responsibilities when working with us. Because yes, we could gather the money and do all that stuff, but remember, you don't know us, and since we're actually supplying with the freight dispatchers, it doesn't hurt us because we know everything's in line because they obviously contact us because we stay in contact with our freight dispatchers. It doesn't matter who they're with. So what you'll do is if you're actually interested in looking at the calculator, you can go under course prices and go down to what is called the ultimate profit engine, the advantage of outsourcing and freight dispatching. And obviously it goes through and says by leveraging our network freight dispatching in the Philippines, you'll unlock a business model with exponential profitability and minimal investment. And the reason is because if you're actually sourcing from lots of countries, it's a lot more expensive. So let's say, for example, I tell you, we'll just go down and do it because I don't want to give you no examples. I just want to show you the presentation. And then if you want to talk more in depth, then we can go through that. So basically what this is a calculator I built. So unlock an exponential profit. And the first question it's going to ask truck dispatchers per each outsourced freight dispatcher. So for each freight dispatcher that we will actually source to you that will be coming from the Philippines, we're going to be basically, we want them to at least do 7 minimum. And they can do 7. 5 is a reasonable number to ask. 7 is good. 10 is great. But it's always going to depend on what trailer they're going to be doing because remember, we only teach dry van, reefer, flatbed, and step deck because after that it becomes a little bit more complicated. And I just want to keep the stupid mistakes out of it. So for each one, we're going to bring it up to 7. So this is going to be the trucks dispatched per each outsourced freight dispatcher. The next thing is going to be the outsourced freight dispatcher weekly salary. For an experienced freight dispatcher, it's actually going to be somewhere around, give or take, because this is going to be weekly salary. So if we're doing, let's say we're doing $800 a month, then it's $200 a week. So we'll bring it up here to $200 a week because the average price that you're going to be paying a freight dispatcher per month from the Philippines is going to be basically somewhere between $500 and $1,200. $800 is a good medium to start working them at. And then as you build up, then obviously you can pay them more based on their skill set. I wouldn't don't just start shooting up the price, even though you're making profit, because that's the reason you're actually going to be making such a great profit is because you're already making good revenue off of one truck. Um, and so that being said, we'll move on to the next one. As we go through, you'll see how it accumulates. Manager weekly salary. This is if that you don't want to handle them. It's easy enough for you to handle these people. So I really wouldn't hire a manager. So we're just going to leave that at 0 for now. Your company's dispatch commission percentage, you charge per truck. And this is going to be, I do 8 and 10%. So that, you back it down to 8 or you can bring it up to 10. So all my trucks right now are actually at 10%. And so I'm going to leave it at 10%. Gross revenue per truck. I do step days. I know I have to make at least $8,500 per truck. So let's bring it close to 85 there, 8449 or whatever. So we'll leave it that there. That's close enough. I keep playing with it and we'll never get it lined up. So now this is going to be the number of outsourced dispatchers. Now you can take this and use the other model and easily see that. But if we just do one, then obviously your weekly labor is going to be your total gross revenue gross. This is going to be weekly. With that many trucks should be somewhere around $60,000. That being said, your labor cost for that dispatcher is somewhere around $200 for that week. The weekly net income, your earnings, that you should actually be making pretty much well close to $6,000 a week. And then weekly profit per dispatcher, because that's per dispatcher. We're going to add these extra dispatchers on here in just a moment, and you'll see how it grows really quickly. That you're basically going to be doing making the $5,749 per each of those. Now remember, you're doing 7 trucks in this scenario at 10%. 7 trucks at 10%. So the labor cost US based for a week like this is basically around $1,200 a week. Obviously, you can make a lot more depending on what you're actually it's going to be set at. But by using the United States, somebody to staff your business in the United States, you're basically losing $1,000. So it's actually a little bit worse than this, but I kept the numbers low because I didn't want to get crazy and I didn't want to hear a bunch of negative feedback. And then obviously you can see what the monthly actually looks like. Your total monthly gross revenue should be around somewhere about $250,000 for the month if you can maintain those standings based on those 7 trucks, at least managing to make $8,500 a week. And obviously, like we said, that's only $800 a month that you're paying your staff, that one dispatcher. Now, the monthly net income earnings is going to be obviously you'll make somewhere around $22,000, $23,000 for that month if you can manage to keep that. There are absolutely people that manage to keep it. There are people that go lower than this. So don't be disappointed because it takes you a little bit of time to get your learning curve up. But remember, you're going to have experienced freight dispatchers. These people already know how to do everything. They know how to even recruit the owner operators. They know how to actually look at the load boards, negotiate the rate, do the back office paperwork, all those different things that you have to do, including getting all the stuff for factoring, which they'll send it to you because you want to keep your hands on the factoring to make sure everything goes through for the carrier. Now, the labor cost, give and take, somewhere around $4,800 is what it would probably cost you per month, or even more than this, which it would be more than this. But so you're on this given scenario, you're losing $4,000 by actually using staff in the United States. So that being said, we're going to go back here and we're going to change the setting. This is going to be the one that we're looking at. This is going to be the number of outsourced freight dispatchers if you end up working with us that you're going to actually end up getting. So, or even more if you can handle them. But let's say that you're only going to do 5. So remember, if you do 5 of them, that means you're doing 35 trucks if each of them have 7. So that's the reason when we'll say that is because remember, if you come back up here, it's set on 7. So you can adjust this. If you think it's 5, we'll adjust it to 5 or whatever it is. Now, I'm going to go off the understanding that we're basically paying everybody $800. This is just to give you an idea of what you're looking at. This ain't in stone. You can do worse than this if you screw around and don't listen, or you can do better than this if you really understand it and grab a hold of it and run with it. This is all still set at 10%, and we're still saying we got to get $8,500 per truck. So that being said, if you maintain the $8,500 per truck per those 7 trucks of 5 dispatchers, that's a total of $3,500, then you're making roughly $300,000 for the week. And that means that you're paying out because you got 5 of them, and we're saying we're paying them $200 a week. Or actually, they get paid bi-weekly, but at $200 a week, that basically gives it where it's $1,000 a week that you're doing. So you take the $1,000, which actually end up being $4,000 because you remember you got 5 dispatches altogether. That being said, your net weekly income would be somewhere around basically $30,000. And no shit, that's what you would be making. So don't twist it up. That's the reason you don't want to work for somebody, but you really got to understand you've got to learn how to manage. And I will teach you to manage. If you can do what our prerequisites are to actually do this, we will teach you how to do this. And we won't even charge you for it, by the way. That being said, weekly profit per dispatcher. This is basically, like I said, again, they're still making you about $5,750 a week based on that setup that they're getting 10% of that truck, doing roughly $8,500 plus per week. Now, the labor cost, that being said on that one, would be for those different would be about $6,000. But remember, this right here don't really hold true because it's going off one of them. And we're talking about 5 freight dispatchers. So this here will not apply. So the labor cost versus this here, you will have to skip it at this point because the number significantly changed. Now, the total monthly gross, you're doing over $1 million a month, and your total monthly labor costs at $800 a piece. 5 of them is going to be $4,000. Excuse me, sorry. So your monthly income, if you're actually doing this anywhere close, it might be lower than this. But shit, you're making more money doing this than you'll ever make doing anything else. So if you really got the skill set, remember, you're only managing basically your 5 freight dispatchers, and each of them guys are experienced and they're managing at least 7+ trucks apiece. So if you can wrap your hand around this, even though I'm showing you this, I hope it makes sense why you want to go through what I'm trying to tell you. And now, if you don't believe in yourself, just leave this alone. Ignore this because it ain't gonna do you no good. Because I do get people that just ain't got it. But anyways, your monthly net income would obviously be somewhere around 115,000, and then obviously your monthly net profit per each dispatcher is somewhere almost at $23,000 a month. So that being said, if you don't want to actually work with us and do it this way, you can easily do it on your own. We will still outsource for you, and we just charge $1,000 flat rate for each outsourced freight dispatcher that you need. We do pre-interview them, like maybe I've told you before, maybe I saw another video. We do pre-interview them, make sure that they're legit deal. I can do VOEs, verification of employments, to a certain degree, but I can't go all the way with it because some of them are just, some of those companies are not even U.S. companies, or they're out of business, all kinds of other stuff. Because remember, they don't have a social security number. But that being said, this is what you do if you actually, one, come to our freight dispatcher school, or don't come to our freight dispatcher school, but you can secure at least 5 owner-operators on your own, so we can see that you can do that, because you're going to have to be able to teach the other freight dispatchers that we're giving them to you in case they're having problems, how you did it. So that's the reason we make sure you have to actually recruit them yourself. In addition to that, once you do that, you've proved to me that you can actually handle this. That's all I'm looking to do, is to make sure that you can actually do this, because if you can't do this, well, it don't do us a lot of good, and you're wasting my time and wasting your time. But that being said, at that given point, I will then offer you the opportunity to actually partner with us, to where you're actually running the outsourced freight dispatchers to actually build a company. And then obviously we will actually negotiate what we normally get out of that deal, because we're not charging you. But if you don't want to do it, you can do a one-man show and obviously do your own thing. Now, that being said, let's come down to the next part. I believe this is going to be the types of dispatchers that we're talking about. So in these dispatchers, you're going to have basically 3 that we outsource from. The types that we end up getting, you got a beginner dispatcher, which they know some stuff, but you're still going to have to clean them up and train them. They learn from the trucking companies. They may have not learned every single thing, but they did learn a lot. Then the intermediate, they definitely know a lot, but they still are a little bit insecure. They know as much as the professional dispatcher, okay? But the professional dispatcher, difference in them, they know everything. They want to show what they've got. And these are harder to find because most of these guys are actually doing their own thing. You're more likely to get an intermediate dispatcher that does know how to do this, and there's no problem with them. It's just that their confidence level may not always be perfect. And it's just the way people are. It's nothing personal. Now, this right here is a freight dispatcher salary expectations. That's the reason you can get a beginner from $400 to $600 per month, an intermediate $700 to $900 per month, and then a professional for $1,000 to $1,200 per month. And that will be the salary that they're asking for. Now, this is outsourcing for success. This is also another one you can come down to. It's still under the same thing, but this is asking about taxes, because we had somebody ask about this. The deal is you don't have to pay nothing for them. Medicaid, Medicare, any of that, because they are not residents, don't have a social security number of the United States. That's the reason. It's in addition to not having to pay them much as overhead labor, but also on the tax aspect, you don't have to pay for them in their tax aspect of taxes, like their personal Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and all that crap. So you want to read over that as well. And then the ultimate outsourcing. This is, you can look over this. Basically, this is going to be the number of trucks. So when you want to go down here, this is your business with 7 trucks. So, and you want to go down here and look at these. I'm just showing you what these are so that way you can follow up on these. Remember, this is under truckdrivernation.com. Go under course prices and scroll down past all the course prices, and all this data is in here. Now, this here is going to be the rest of it. I'm not going to get off into because it doesn't have nothing to do with the topic that we're covering right here. But you definitely want to go down and take a look at this. If you have any questions, please make sure to get back with us so that we can obviously go over these different things. But that being said, I'm going to bring it to a close on this. That was actually what you do if you want to actually partner with Truck Driver Nation as a freight dispatcher, where you don't just become a dispatcher, but then you become a leader of your own team. And we will assist you in that. But anyways, I appreciate your time. I hope that you understand what I'm talking about. If you don't, make sure to bring your questions. We do have webinars. So go into there. You got contact information inside our website. Make sure to send your request to join the webinar. We do those on Wednesdays so you can get a better idea of what Truck Driver Nation is and things to that degree. But anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. I appreciate your time. I hope this helped you out. And for those that are already working with us, I've seen some great things out of you guys, and I want to continue to see more. Make sure that you engage me with those problems that some of you guys are having on different topics based on what you're trying to do. But overall, just make sure you take care of those freight dispatchers that we've outsourced to you, because they're working hard for you. So make sure that you find out what their needs are as well. And we do, like I told everybody, we do have sessions where we actually teach business and how to handle multiple freight dispatchers that are obviously handling the owner operators. But that being said, I'll leave that there. I appreciate everybody's time. Have a blessed day and look forward to working with you.